All right, welcome to another episode of Closers or Losers. Let me turn the lights on here. I am with Talis Koto, our Vice President of Revenue, a former client. Kind of crazy. We only hire from within because once you learn what we train you, neuro-emotional persuasion questions, it's hard for us to hire outside when people don't know what the heck that even is. So Talis, we had him on here maybe a couple weeks ago. Matt is actually traveling back to our Sydney, Australia office today from New York City. So I'm like, Talis, fill in. We're going to talk about something pretty cool. We're going to talk about advanced tonality. And we actually have a 3-day training on this where we're going to let everybody that listens to the podcast attend that for free. It's called Better Tonality, Bigger Commissions. Okay. So we're going to have the link there where you can register for free. It's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, October 4th, October 5th, October 6th at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to roll back the curtains. Okay. You're not going to hear much theory with us. We're going to give you tactical training. We're going to show you examples of maybe even good questions you're asking now, but because your tone is off, it's actually triggering the response you don't want from your prospect. It's actually triggering sales resistance, and your prospects are putting up the wall of defense, triggering objections. And now you go into like rebuttal mode. And it's like this ever ending circle of like trying to overcome the objection, chasing them, trying to get them to buy. And it doesn't have to be that way. Now, Talis, so we'll provide the registration link here for you guys here in just a second, somewhere on here. Now, Talis, so you came, when did you start NEPQ? Was it about 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was like August 2020.
That's crazy, man. So that's so you're
Time
talking
flies.
about like kind of right during the middle of the pandemic, all that stuff. Maybe to give everybody just like a 2-minute 2-minute like short version of like why you got in sales, kind of what was going on. I know that, you were in an industry where it pretty much got shut down during COVID.
Yeah. By this time, people are just bored with my story, right? So just to kind of remind them of it, right? I was in the event production industry, which got shut down, at least where I was in Massachusetts, on March 17th, or actually March 7th of 2020.
March 7th, so you're talking like a week after lockdown. I mean, like a couple of days.
Pretty much. Yeah. Right. Lockdown, fired, right? Like, we don't need you anymore. There's no events. So, and I just hopped in sales because of the money, to be completely fair. In the beginning, I wanted to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, you know what? I'll hop in sales because there's a lot of money to be made.
Yeah.
Couldn't make a sale, couldn't make any money. So I'm like, oh, I better learn how to do this.
Yeah.
Then I found your training through some people were just mentioning Jeremy Miner. I learned this from Jeremy Miner. Found you, hopped into training.
You're like, who the hell?
The rest is just
Jeremy Miner?
Yeah. I looked in YouTube, found you there. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Talked to one of your sales guys back then. Enrolled in the training, and here I am, right?
Here you are, dude. You start. What's that rap song? Like, you start up from the bottom, now you're here. That's what I was thinking about. I love that. Hey, that was me. 20 years ago, 22 years ago. Geez, I'm that old. When I got into sales, start from the bottom, now you're here. That's always reminds me of myself. But I'm like, that's Talis.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the advanced tonality, because you got in. You got into sales, then you like 3-4 months later, you got into NEPQ. And that's when things really started to take off for you. Because I think before, if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, you were like, oh my gosh, struggling making $2, $3, $4 grand a month. I don't think you could quite get above that. You get into NEPQ, you start learning like advanced tonality, you start learning some of these things we're talking about. And it's like your commissions double the next month, and then they double the next month. And then all of a sudden, like, 8 months later, this dude's making 40 grand a month in commissions. I mean, that's a big difference. 48 grand a year compared to $480,000 a year is a little bit of a different type of lifestyle. Elaborate.
I'd have to say so, right? Essentially, yeah, possibly. No, and then you're inflating my my salary before. It was just 39 grand, 40 grand.
Oh, 39.
Now,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
not even 48.
Okay.
Maybe if I was making 48, I wouldn't mean sales.
I was trying to
But
make you
anyway,
feel better. All right, good.
yeah. But the thing is, it's huge, right? Not only for the money, but I live in Indiana, for example. My monthly expenses are so low, Jeremy, that like in a year I was able to save so much money that I was like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
So it transformed my life, my family's life, and everything for me. And I know this sounds kind of cliche. People probably hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But having the ability to kind of cut your own paycheck,
Yeah.
it's kind of, it's life changing, right? It's transformational. Now I don't need a boss anymore. I can just go sell whatever I want for whoever I want because
Yeah.
the skill is there.
Yeah.
So
It
and
completes.
tonality. The shift that I noticed was the structure is a very important part of everything, but the tone, the cadence, how you are perceived by the prospect really dictates that.
It's everything. And let's talk about the tonality. You know, I did a big training yesterday for one of our B2B clients. It's a huge insurance company. They've got like, let's see, like 18,000 salespeople in the United States, agents, insurance agents.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've done a keynote with them. A lot of their, several thousands of their salespeople are in our platform. And we did this virtual training event for them yesterday. And we talked about something that's called verbal cues, you know, and I'll try to even, maybe I'll even bring this in here for you guys if I can. I've got like this board, you know, I've got this board here.
You're getting fancy.
I'm getting fancy these days, you know. So we talk about verbal cues, okay? Verbal cue question, all right? Now this is really important because a lot of people, when they start to learn what we, sorry about the writing there, write like a doctor. So a lot of people, when they start learning what we call neuro-emotional persuasion questioning, right? Because we can teach them the very best questions. But what we noticed a lot in the beginning, and this is how we kind of had to like, you know, train them with like, you know, different things to help them like make a lot of money very quickly, is that they kind of sound scripted, right? They memorize some questions and they come in and they'll ask a question and the prospect answers. And then they step back and they go, okay, cool, awesome. Let me ask you, John. And then they ask a question and the prospect answers. And then they say, oh, okay, that's awesome. Now I'm curious, tell me. And it sounds like they're following the structure, but it's
interrogation interview mode.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going into like interrogation mode, like an FBI agent or something. It sounds robotic, right? So typically, that will trigger, especially A-type personalities, to start to emotionally shut down and or be like, hey, just, you know, just, I don't have time for the questions. Like, you know, just what do you have? And I'll tell you if I'm interested. Now, how do we get around that? So we make our conversations natural. Now, how do we bridge? It's called bridging, all right? So bridging is something that, you know, you learn very quickly, right? Because we teach this in all of our virtual training courses, is we have these things that are called verbal cues, and we have these things called verbal pauses, all right, in our tonality and how we are we going to, when we ask a certain question, are we going to show more empathy and soften our voice, or are we going to be out here a little bit more, right, in different hand gestures, even if we're calling on the phone and they can't see us, because every movement we do in our body, even if they can't see, affects what? Our tone and how that message is portrayed. Like the tonality is affected. If I just sit here, hands to the side, asking the same questions, it comes out much differently than if I'm like, but I'm not understanding, like when you said you're here, like, you know, then I raise my hands here, just that little thing there affects my tone. So what's called verbal cues are like, ah, okay. Right. Now, you're not going to say them like every 2 seconds because that's going to sound awkward. But when you started learning verbal cues, what started to change with your prospects?
I think like when it comes down to verbal cues specifically, I noticed they started to engage a little bit more, right? Because I think in my mind, when I think about them, they felt like I was there, I was present. Yeah. They started to spill the beans a little bit more.
Yeah, spill the beans. Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, right? Because I'm acknowledging what they're saying, but I think the most important part about verbal cues also is it allowed me to bring the prospect back for the conversation if it was needed, like in interruptions and things of that nature, without sounding like I'm chopping them off and kind of trying to sell them something.
Yeah. So verbal cue. So you always want to have a verbal cue. So when we tell our clients in our virtual training courses, especially when we're in group training with them as well, that pretty much if you have a verbal cue like, but help me understand that verbal cue helps you bridge into the question. And it triggers the prospect. They don't even feel like you're trying to sell them. Like when you truly master selling, your prospects won't feel like you're selling to them. They will feel like they're selling to you to want to pay you to get them the result. That's when you know that you're on the right track, when they don't feel like they're being sold to. Okay. That's when it ends. Now, the way you do that is you have to bridge from question to question to make it natural. Okay. Right. Okay. But tell me, like, what do you do? See how I bridged into that next question, right? They'll just go right with it. They'll open right up. But if I ask a question and they answer and I'm like, okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, that really helps me out. Now I'm curious, let me ask you, sounds really scripted, right? How did your prospects started to react? Like before you learned this, when you're asking questions, what did you notice from a lot of them?
Oh man, I can't even remember. I ditched. I'm blocking out the bad stuff, right? Just like, hey, no, but no, all joking aside, I remember talking to people and having a very hard time engaging in that conversation, right? Yeah. Just like you said, I would talk to them. I didn't know how to really conduct this conversation. Yeah. I didn't have the verbal cues yet kind of nailed down. It would just be like, hey, come on. I know you guys are selling this. How much is it?
How much is it? Then you got to spill the beans, then it's over, right? So I
didn't even know how to do it. So it's like, oh man.
Yeah. So what you're saying is your prospects just stayed surface level with you. And if you're a sales professional listening to us right now, or you're a coach or a consultant, or you're a business owner, entrepreneur, senior leadership, sales leadership, management, anything, if your prospects stay surface level, what objections do you get at the end? I want to think it over. I need to keep doing more research. I just met you guys. I don't know enough about you.
Send me an email. Send me a proposal.
Send me a proposal. Send me more.
I need to talk to my chakras. Consult the universe.
I need to talk to my, if you sell B2C, I need to talk with my wife. You sell B2B. I need to talk to this person, that person, this person. I need to talk to my accountant. I need to talk to my financial advisor. I need to talk to grandma.
Call me back on Christmas.
Yeah, I need to talk to my uncle who lives in a van down by the river. Call me back next week, next month, 10 years from now, right? So we know if we can't get them below the surface, that they don't emotionally engage. We can't get them into their emotional state where they make buying decisions. Okay. Yep. So let me give everybody another example, what's called verbal pause. Okay. So what is a verbal pause? Now, there's some people that really do good with verbal pausing. Two people stand out in my mind. Now, like I said, guys and gals, I don't get into politics. I'm like kind of right down the middle. All we care about is sales training. So I know I have people that are Democrats listening to this, and Republicans and libertarians and whatever. I don't care about your political beliefs. We still love you, right? We're just training you how to sell more, right? But two people that when I watch politicians speak, I just see like their cadence. Like I'm like, oh yeah, did you see how he moved this way and he shifted when he asked this question, then he paused. Like I can tell that they were taught how to do that. So two good really people that are really good at verbal pausing are Tony Robbins. I know he's not in politics, but Tony Robbins, and I'll show you why. And then one of the former presidents of Obama. These two people were really good at verbal pausing. All right. So when they spoke, they would talk and then they would ask a question and they would just pause. And it would make people think deeper. So when we verbal pause, it makes people think deeper about what we either said or what we asked. And it triggers them to go deeper into their really own soul. Tony Robbins is a master at this. Like if you watch him on YouTube or at his events and he comes out, he doesn't tell people how they need to change and what they should do. you're going to notice he asks certain questions and it allows them to tell him, and more importantly, themselves, how they can overcome that. And that's true persuasion. That's the highest paid psychologists in the world. They get paid $1,000, $2,000 an hour. Don't tell their patients what they do, what they need to do to change. They ask certain questions that allow the patient to tell themselves. And when they internalize that, they persuade themselves. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe the same thing, right? I think like I had a good teacher. And like, at the end of the day, what I noticed is I like to compare to like personal relationships, Jeremy. What I realized is I used to be the guy telling you all the time. Right? Like I would tell my friends or tell my mom or my dad or tell my spouse or my kids.
Yeah.
And guess what? What would happen? That nobody would listen to me.
In one ear, out the other.
They would say something like, yeah, I understand. And do the complete opposite thing, right? So once I got the chance to go through NEPQ and learn how people actually behave, how people behave, right? And how they think a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what shifted.
Yeah.
I noticed that once you ask certain questions for people to come up with their own conclusion, they'll do the thing that you might want them to, but they'll do it for their reasons. So they'll do it anyways.
Yeah.
Right. So like I see it as like we have the privilege to hear them tell us this stuff, but they're really telling them and convincing them otherwise.
Yeah, you're 100%. I'll give you an example of a verbal pause. Let's say if you get into a conversation, let's say you sell B2B and you're cold calling, right? You don't typically in B2C, you don't do as much cold calling. It's more of a B2B type of approach. But let's say you call a prospect and right off the bat, they're like, oh, hey, we're good. We already have, we're not interested. We already have somebody for that. Now, what do most salespeople do? They like, well, I know we can save you money if you just give me 2 minutes of your time. And then the process, like click, you're just done, right? That's what everybody salesperson does. So I want to basically not tell them why they should listen to me, because that I know, like you just said, that's going to go in one ear out the other because I'm a salesperson. I'm biased, right? So I have to first disarm the prospect and get them to let their guard down. And I can do that by a verbal pause. Watch this. Well, yeah, hey, Jeremy, we're good. Like we already have somebody for this, but thank you for the time. Oh, yeah, John. And just so you're aware, I'm not quite sure we can even help you yet. We'd have to understand a little bit more about kind of what you do now in XYZ area compared to, blah, 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 just to see if we can even help, because maybe you don't even need us. Are you opposed to possibly having a conversation around that? Now, did you see my verbal pause there? Well, I'm not quite sure that you should yet. Well, why should we go with you? We already have somebody for that. Well, I'm not quite sure that you should yet. See that 2-second pause. Now, what happens? What do they internalize just by me pausing right there? Well, I'm not quite sure that you should. Well, why should we go with you? We already have somebody for that. Well, I'm not quite sure that you should yet. We'd have to. Now, you can't pause for 10 seconds. But what does that 2 to 3 second pause do in their mind?
I think it's like a pattern interrupt, right? It's like they're not used to non-pushy salespeople. So it forces them to internalize what you said, but really go deep into understanding what's going on. So I
just detached myself. Well, I'm not quite sure should yet. We'd have to understand, we have to understand a little bit more about XYZ, because maybe you're better off staying with who you already have. Now, that's whole nother train. Because when I say maybe you're better off staying with who you already have, people just let their guard down. They're just like, what? It's like they've never experienced a salesperson say that we might not even be able to help you. I don't know enough details yet. Now, you're not saying that at the end of a sales call. That's not going to happen. You're talking about in the first 30 seconds. There's no trust. There's no credibility built yet, right? You just started talking with them. Now, do I know that we can help them? Yes, of course I do. But if I tell them in the first 30 seconds, I know we can help you and blah, 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 and I just push, human behavior,
prove it.
They just push back or prove it to me. So I know that I have to disarm them first to get them to open up, go below the surface. And by the end of the call, they're going to persuade themselves that I really can help them. That's the difference. So verbal pausing is so freaking powerful. You know, these two, I mean, there's a lot of other people, but these two do really well when they talk. You notice they just pause and they change their voice fluctuations. Now, that's not something they were born with. Nobody is born with advanced tonality. I wasn't born with advanced tonality, advanced questioning skills, advanced, objection prevention skills. Those are just skills I acquired. So all of you can acquire those skills right now. Talus, thanks for being on here today. You know, this is kind of a short podcast that we're doing. But look, if you're wanting to take your sales to the next level, if you're wanting to double what you are right now or triple what you are right now, because I can pretty much assure you, we are training salespeople and companies in your industry hearing me and Talus and watching us right now that are making 3 to 5 times more than what you are right now. And there's no difference with them and you. They don't have, cool eyebrows. They're not really strong and buff. They're not tall or short. Like they're not one color or the other. Like none of that matters. The only thing that matters is your tonality and your skill level, your questionability. And that's what we're going to teach you on Tuesday, October 4th, Wednesday, October 5th, and Thursday, October 6th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to have a link here where you can register for free. It's the Better Tonality, bigger commissions. Better Tonality equals what? Bigger commission. So if you want to make bigger commission checks and write your own ticket and go anywhere in the world like Talus has, who now, became like the top salesperson in his entire company. And then about 5 months ago, we brought him over here. He's now the vice president of revenue for the whole company. A big company that's really growing really fast. You want to learn those type of skills where you can do anything you want and have everybody want to hire you and just go to the world. Then your first step is to register for that event. Talus, any last words?
No, I really encourage anybody that's thinking about coming and seeing how to get more commissions and make more sales to check this out, because this is the difference that brought me from 5 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50. And now, like I just told you about the event that we were in Miami throughout the hurricane, selling multi-million-dollar deals.
Yeah, 100%.
All because of that, how people perceive you and how you're coming across to them, which is the only thing that really matters, right?
The only thing that matters, baby, your tonality. Better tonality equals bigger commissions. And we're going to give you certain questions to ask. We're going to show you certain words you're using right now that are triggering sales resistance. Even certain questions you're asking that are triggering sales resistance. We're going to show you how to relanguage those words and questions so you sell more. So we'll put that up, register for free for the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, October 4th, 5th, 6th. We're going to challenge 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Plan on 90 minutes to even 2 hours. Sometimes we'll go all the way to 2 hours, baby. When we get serious about training here, we don't just stop if we keep going. So plan on 90 minutes to 2 hours. Block that off on your calendar if you want to learn how to sell more. Talus, thank you, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, my man.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.